4. Flight. The boy doubled over in pain, clutching the back of his head. Ah! In the next fraction of a second, Mole was charging towards Jinx. Ah! The boy yelled again, rocking his head in his hands. He struggled up in disbelief. Skull! There's someone here! He staggered to a tree, unable to piece together what was happening. Mole gripped hold of Jinx's mane and leapt up onto her back. Digging her heels into Cob's flanks, she spurred Jinx on. The chanting had stopped and the camp was silent. "It's a girl!" the boy cried behind her. "And a button-sized one at that!" There were a few guffaws from the fire. Then a voice, cold and loaded. "After her, Alfie." Guiding Jinx, with only her legs and voice, Mole urged the cob on, away from Skull's camp. "Go, Jinx, go! Faster than you've ever run before!" she cried. It didn't matter that her nightmare had come alive anymore. Now it was just about the chase, and she had to win. If the boy was in pain, he no longer showed it. Placing his fingers to his mouth, he whistled. The smouldering body of a black stallion cob appeared from behind a tree, its eyes as dark as night, its nostrils steaming. Yanking the tethering rope from the cob's halter, the boy hoisted himself up onto its back. "After them, Raven!" he yelled, kicking hard. Weaving between trunks and dipping between branches, Mole raced back towards the glade, past the giant's cage, past the rat, past the owls, leaving all of that behind. Jinx's neck was stretching forward now as she darted between the trees, reaching the full speed of her gallop. And every now and again, Mole glimpsed a flash of grey and black stripes as Griff ran alongside them. "That's my girl! Go on, Jinx! Go on!" But there was a thundering of hooves behind her now, churning up the deadened glade. Mole twisted her head for a second. The boy was there, some meters behind, on his stallion cob. Whoever he was, he rode fast. "Go on, Jinx!" Mole urged. The boy and his stallion Raven continued to gain on them. Moments later they were side by side, and the boy was crouching upon his feet on Raven's back, ready to leap towards Mole. His eyes were blue and intense, like his jay feather, and his teeth were set. Mole's eyes widened and she kicked harder. The boy steadied himself, about to leap, but Mole leant forward, pulling Jinx's halter hard. They sidestepped his grasp, and from somewhere nearby, Griff growled. The boy looked around, alert on edge, but there was nothing there, only dawn needling through the darkness, pricking the night sky blue. The boy slid back to a seated position, cautious now. Mole breathed again. "Just to the river, Jinx. We're safe past there." "Come back here, Titch," the boy yelled, spurring on. Mole scowled, her face hot with fury at the insult. She leant forward towards Jinx's ears. "That's my girl. Keep going, Jinx." They leapt over stumps of trees and fallen branches. On, towards the river. "You thieve from us, Spud Mucker," Mole cried over her shoulder. "I'm taking back what's rightfully ours. Oak's camp is never leaving the forest, however hard you try to force us out." Jinx galloped even faster, but the thunder of hooves behind them didn't stop. Like cogs in a monstrous machine, they charged on, closer and closer. "You wait till Skull gets his hands on your scrawny neck," the boy shouted. Foam was dripping from Raven's mouth, flecking his white chest. Again, the boy crouched on the cob's back, swinging for Mole's halter. But Jinx burst away. The river was in sight, sparkling in the moonlight like a promise. Mole leant forward and stroked the soft, downy hair behind Jinx's ears. the place where sensitive cobs kept their souls. They were within strides of the water, racing towards the alder trees. "Now, Jinx, jump!" Jinx lifted from the ground, knees bent, hooves tucked beneath her stomach. They soared across the river and landed, panting, on the other side. Mole bent low to Jinx, whispered in her ear, and as Jinx surged forward, Mole leapt from her back into the branches of an alder overhanging the river. She scampered upwards as Jinx's hooves faded towards the clearing of the camp. On the other side of the river, Raven came to a skidding halt. He paced by the bank in tight circles, and from beneath a mop of fair hair his rider cursed. Safe in the aerial world of branches and leaves, Mole glowered down. "One shout from my pipes, and the whole camp are come running," she hissed. "The ancient wood is Oak's territory, so you can go back to your den of thieves and wipe your backside on a tree root." She drew out her catapult and brandished it at the boy. "And they say girls can't fight." The boy scowled. His cheeks were flushed and he was breathing fast. Mole crouched in the tree, tucking her feet into its branches. "You've no right here. Beat it." She looked Raven up and down, then spat through the leaves. "Your cob is nothing in a race with Jinx." The boy's body stiffened. "Don't you insult Raven," he replied, stroking the stallion's mane. "You saw how he outdid your pony in our glade. Raven would win a gallop, and you know it." "Pony?" Mole cried, leaping up a branch and hissing. "Jinx isn't a pony. She's quick as lightning." She paused. "You're daft, you are. Tree spirits have eaten your brains." She picked at a leaf casually. "I've also got a wildcat," she said, "and you're not going to top that." At the mention of the wildcat, the boy stiffened on Raisin and then went very, very still. His eyes narrowed. Somewhere nearby, Griff growled low and deep, like the groaning of a faraway glacier. And suddenly Mole felt as if she'd betrayed a terrible secret. She coiled her body into the alder and scuttled further up its branches. The boy's face relaxed slightly. "A wildcat?" Then he scoffed. "Raven's one of the only animals who can recognize himself outright in a mirror. Beats an imaginary wildcat." But there was something about the boy's voice now. Something which made the hair on Mole's arms stand on end. Again, Griff's growl came even deeper than before, warning her to stay back. But why? There was no drum, no mask, no chant now, only the rippling of the river winding downstream. Skull was far away in the deep wood, and this was just a boy. Not even a real gypsy boy, if his colouring was anything to go by. The boy turned away, tugging at Raven's halter and gripping his talsman. A knot of his cob's black hair tied to a string round his neck. Mole remained silent, watching them leave, and then, nonchalantly, she slipped backwards, catching her knees on the branch so that she was hanging upside down above the water. "And don't come back," she shouted. A sickening lump formed in her throat. The boy and his cob were coming back. The boy was kicking Raven in the flanks hard, and they were charging back towards the river, towards her. Mole flipped her body back into the tree. She'd have to jump, then sprint to the camp to get there first. She gasped. Her foot was caught, jammed between two branches. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and the boy was charging towards her, just meters from the bank. There was a rustling from the undergrowth beneath her as, like a ripple of silk, Griff sprang up into the branches, pounding at the one that trapped Mole's leg. And when that didn't work, he touched her. for the very first time, actually touched her. She felt his soft, warm strength pushing against her, and it filled her with courage. She yanked her foot harder and harder until it slipped free. Then she leapt to the ground, landing in a crouch, and sprinted several paces away from the river. She turned. Griff was still in the branches, hissing, growling, and stamping his forelimbs. His eyes glowed green, and his hackles rose, as if he was growing in size, and as he snarled, he bared rows of white fanged teeth. The boy yanked Raven's halter, and they skidded to a halt, centimetres from the riverbank. The soil beneath Raven's hooves began to crumble, and they retreated backwards. The boy stared at Griff, blinking in disbelief. His voice was altogether different now, half curious, half afraid. It can't be, he stammered. The beast, the child from... He looked Mole straight in the eye. But at that second a hand clapped down on Mole's shoulder. The boy turned sharply, then galloped back into the deep wood. And Mole whirled round to face Oak.